Well, friends, good morning. Good to be with you this morning. So anytime in the gospel where Jesus talks about how or whether we enter the kingdom of heaven, it's a good moment to pay attention, right? You want to tune in on that, right? If he's talking about how do you get into heaven, you want to pay attention to that. That's the goal of our lives. Because the reality is we're going to hear one of two things by the end of our lives. When we close our eyes on this world, we're going to hear one of two things. Either, well done, good and faithful servant, enter into your master's joy, which everybody wants to hear, right? Or the other thing that nobody wants to hear, right? So that's the reality. So what does he say? He says that our righteousness has to surpass that of the scribes and the Pharisees. So here's the three questions, right? Here's the three questions. How would his listeners, how would they have heard that through, first century Jewish ears, what would their response have been in that? Secondly, what does he really mean? And third, what does that mean for us? What the heck does that have to do with us? So first, what would they have heard and how would they have responded? They would have been shocked. They would have been jaws on the ground, stunned, taken aback. They would have been so shocked because that would be like me saying, unless you're a better golfer than Tiger Woods, right? Or unless you're a better basketball player than Michael Jordan or LeBron James, right? Then you're not getting in. And all of us are thinking, crud, right? I'm not going to make it. Because when it came to first century Judaism's understanding of righteousness, right? The word in Greek is dikaiosune, it means rectification. When it came to their understanding of righteousness, nobody did it better than the Pharisees. Nobody did it better than the Pharisees. That's what they did. They were masters of the law, interpreting the law, applying the law. That's what they did, parsing out the very subtle nuances, the requirements, the 613 laws, right? How do you take this abstract, ethereal law? What does that look like in the concrete circumstances? That was their obsession. That was their life. Nobody did it better. No one was more rigorous or intentional. And so it seems as though Jesus is saying essentially, you've got to be holier than them. You've got to be holier than them. Is that what he's saying? You just got to try harder. No, that's not what he's saying. That's not what he's saying. He's not saying you need a stricter application of the law. No, he's saying essentially this. Now that I am here, now that the law made flesh is here in your presence, he's saying, let me take you down into the depths to show you the radical demands of the law. I want to get to the root. I want to heal you from the root. The law was given to constrain and confine behavior from an external perspective. And Jesus is saying, I want to get into the heart, to transform the heart from within. It was St. Augustine who said, the law was given that grace might be sought, and grace was given that the law might be fulfilled. Right? The error of the Pharisees was thinking in the first place that they could keep the law. No one could keep the law. The law was given that grace might be given, that grace might be sought, and grace was given that the law might be fulfilled. Jesus wants to take them down to the radical roots. That's what that word means, radix, root. Take us to the root, the demands of the law. He's saying, yeah, obviously we all know killing is bad. We all know that, but where does that come from? It comes from the heart. There's an attitude in the heart of antipathy, of anger, of hatred, of condemnation in the heart that says to your brother, Raka, idiot, fool, imbecile. I want to heal that, is what he's saying. The grace and the mercy, the healing power of Jesus is meant to reach all the way in, all the way down. I've shared this before in other contexts, not here, of course, obviously, second homily, but when St. John Paul II was preaching and holding out to the world this high ideal of what he was calling men and women, husbands and wives to when it came to sexual morality, his greatest critics came from inside the church, people saying to him, you're holding out too high of an ideal. This is not possible for modern men and women. And he would ask, who are we talking about? Man under the dominion of concupiscence and sin, or man redeemed by Christ? And he would look at them and say, do not drain the cross of its power to redeem. Right? This compost pile of our humanity is meant to be sown with the seeds of healing, mercy, beauty, everything that comes to us from the sacraments to transform us radically from within. But that's what he's saying. Right, so how are we supposed to respond? We're supposed to respond by letting Jesus take us to the radical depths, to let his light shine into the depths of our hearts, our souls, our stories, our brokenness, our humanity, all of that. Right, what does St. Paul said? What did he say in that first reading? For God who said, let light shine out of darkness, has shown where? In our hearts, to bring to light the knowledge of the glory of God, where? On the face of Jesus Christ. What is that face? It's a face of compassion. It's a face of kindness and mercy, right? You let me into those depths, he's saying. You let my light shine into those depths. I will show you a face of mercy for you there, right? What was the psalm? Kindness and truth shall meet. Kindness and truth shall meet. Justice and peace shall kiss, right there in the depths of our hearts. So friends, let us open our hearts again today to just the mercy of Jesus, the beauty of Jesus, to let him into these places, to be radically transformed from within. Amen.